Happening now, a parent with students at Jamestown Public Schools is calling for more learning options. The details coming up. Plus, lawmakers hope to have the next COVID-19 economic stimulus deal finalized by the end of the week.
And you're going to be enjoying the sunshine out there this afternoon, but a few showers tomorrow, and then we crank the heat back up again. I've got the details next as the News at Noon starts now.
Live and on demand, this is WNY News Now. This is WNY News Now with live breaking news.
And we start with breaking news. New York State Attorney General Letitia James is suing to dissolve the National Rifle Association, commonly known as the NRA. Attorney General James charges the organization with legal conduct because of their diversion of millions of dollars away from charitable missions of the organization for personal use by leadership and other alleged violations. The organization as a whole, as well as several current and former officials, are being charged by the AG. Complete details of the complaint can be found right now at WNYNewsNow.com, and we are working to learn more about this story. The AG making her remarks just 10 minutes ago, so we'll continue to update our reporting online and on our mobile app. Our top story today, a parent with students at Jamestown Public Schools is calling on the district to allow parents to choose whether or not their children attend school in person this fall. Lindsay Fan, the mother of 3 students in Jamestown's elementary, middle, and high schools, say she has read the school's reopening plan and has concerns about kids keeping their masks on. Fan says she's specifically worried about her son, who has a pre-existing medical condition, catching COVID-19 while at school. She is calling on school officials to offer 2 options to parents, one where they send children back for face-to-face instruction, and the other where parents can choose to have their children attend 100% virtually.
Just for me and my peace of mind, it just makes me feel better having my son at home for those reasons, for the fact that it's hard for him to wear a mask all day because he has asthmatic conditions as well. Can we at least examine that option for parents and maybe revamp the reopening plan to add an option in for those parents who want to opt out but still keep their kids involved in the school district and just do a complete virtual learning?
Now, since releasing the district's reopening plan, Superintendent Dr. Kevin Whitaker says most parent feedback favors face-to-face instruction. A statement to us this morning, Whitaker says the school would, of course, allow for modifications based on a child with serious medical conditions. Now, by August 15th, the district is expected to formally announce specific reopening plans for each individual school. A Buffalo area man was arrested Wednesday after police allege he threw a water bottle at a car on I-86 near Jamestown. New York State Police say 41-year-old Ahmed Aldi of Lackawanna allegedly threw the bottle at a vehicle he was passing, causing damage. Troopers say Aldi fled the scene after the victim called 911. Police say they located the suspect vehicle soon after the incident was reported, and he was taken into custody. He's charged with 4th-degree criminal mischief in that case. Troopers say he was processed, issued an appearance ticket, and released. Algady is scheduled to appear in the Town of Ellicott court at a later date. Lawmakers hope to have the next COVID-19 economic stimulus deal finalized by the end of the week. This as millions have lost their jobs because of the pandemic and are trying to make ends meet. As John Lawrence reports, what's happening behind the scenes is a signal things are actually starting to kick into gear.
Some Americans struggle to get food on the table, especially since the $600 federal boost for unemployment benefits expired.
It's a lot harder to be able to afford fresh fruits and vegetables, the meats and the milk.
Financial insecurities have resulted in long lines at food banks and pantries in many areas.
People don't realize just how important stuff like this is.
And the number of known COVID-19 cases in the U.S. isn't the only thing on the rise. So is the cost of many items at the grocery store. The Bureau of Economic Analysis says the price tag for beef, eggs, poultry, and pork have all gone up. Analysts say some are eating fewer and smaller meals, which could have a ripple effect.
If kids aren't eating well now, they don't grow up to be as healthy. They don't do as well in school, and that has impacts further down the line. They don't make as much as adults.
Talks about another stimulus between top Democratic and White House negotiators are still in a stalemate, but both sides have agreed to reach a deal by the end of the week. And if that deadline isn't met, President Trump may get involved.
By Friday, if we haven't made significant progress and we're just too far apart, the president's prepared to take executive action.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
John, thank you. Claims for initial jobless benefits fell more than expected last week, with 1.2 million Americans filing. That number, reported by the Labor Department today, represents claims on a seasonally adjusted basis. It was a decrease from the prior week's 1.4 million claims. Back here at home, the demolition of an iconic Jamestown property is now underway. Wrecking crews are taking down the former Galloway Mansion and current Moose Lodge on East 5th Street. In recent years, the building needed repair, something that the Moose Lodge was financially unable to do. Last year, the structure was obtained by the Chautauqua County Land Bank and sold. The DIY network show Salvage Dogs combed through the historic property back in April 2019 to salvage vintage pieces. The show's hosts recover everything from doors, windows, mantles, and more. Now, before the Moose owned the mansion, the Galloway family built the structure. The Galloway's daughter, Grace, was a singer that regularly played at the Chautauqua Institution. She died of tuberculosis at age 27 back in 1896. Her father commissioned a statue in her memory at Lakeview Cemetery. A Pittsburgh artist used Grace's last portrait to model that structure after her. A mystery surrounding her and the statue persisted here locally for decades. Certainly an iconic piece of Jamestown history being brought down, but that statue there at Lakeview Cemetery to stay for quite a long time. We thank you so much for joining us here for WNY News Now as we make our way towards the end of the first week of August. Good to see Pam, David, Jay, Jen as well. Hopefully you're doing well. Good to see Valerie, Mark, Wendy, Joseph, and David as well. Hopefully everyone's having a good day. We appreciate you all so much for tuning in. Let's now get a check of our First Defense weather forecast with Chief Forecaster Dakota Hunter. And Dakota, this morning it was pretty chilly across much of the area.
Yes, it was a chilly start to the day. I'll actually show you the low temperatures a little bit later on, but the low temperatures played exactly like we had forecast. Spots in the valleys in the upper 40s this morning. Here's a live look coming from Salamanca. They're already up to 72, but notice the dew point in the upper 40s. So when the dew point is in the 40s and the 50s, that means it is relatively dry and no chance of rain today. We actually had some patchy fog actually set up overnight, and especially in the River Valley areas, that's all burned off, and everybody's doing well in terms of the visibility, 10-mile visibility out there across the entire region. So basically through the afternoon, if you've been bad or good, you're going to get sunshine. I mean, Santa Claus is not in charge of the weather here. So, I mean, you know, even if you've been bad or good, you've got lots of sunshine on tap. It remains cool and comfy, 73 to 78. So today would be a good idea to go out on the lake. The Lake Erie water temperature is tied at 77 apiece off both Buffalo and Erie. Waves around 10 to 15 knots. Winds 10 to 15 knots and waves about a foot or less. But the humidity returns big time as we go into the weekend, into next week. I've got the details in a few. Justin?
All right, Dakota, thank you. A Jamestown woman was arrested after an argument about the use of a face mask ensued at a local convenience store yesterday. Jamestown police responded to the call around 11 a.m. at the 7-Eleven store on North Main Street. Store officials were complaining of an irate customer. 27-year-old Jessica McAdoo was told that she couldn't make a purchase without wearing her mask. Police say McAdoo became angry, challenged the store employee to a fight, and then knocked over a product display before fleeing the area. She was eventually taken to jail and charged with 4th-degree criminal mischief and 3rd-degree criminal trespass. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says people are getting sick and even dying from ingesting hand sanitizer. Yeah, since the coronavirus pandemic started, hand sanitizer has been much more prevalent around town. It is great for keeping our hands clean, but it's certainly not safe to swallow. The CDC says some children might drink hand sanitizer by mistake, and some people might think it's a substitute for alcoholic drinks, but they say it's certainly not. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration recently put out a warning to be on the lookout for menthol in some hand sanitizers distributed here in the U.S. Now, menthol is a toxic and can even be poisonous to some people's skin. The CDC says about 15 adults in Arizona and New Mexico were recently hospitalized for ingesting the poison after consuming the alcohol-based hand sanitizer. 4 of those people died, 6 developed seizures while in the hospital, and 3 were discharged with some impairments. Well, coming up next, how there's a push for more funding for childcare. We'll have that. And later on, Google is championing mask wearing and social distancing. That and more as WNY News Now continues.
With coverage that matters. This is WNY News Now.
EagleZip.com is your local one-stop shop for all of your home and business computer needs. Located on Fluvanna Avenue Extension, just outside of Jamestown, EagleZip.com sells and services all brands of desktops and laptops, as well as servers and network equipment for your business. All new computer sales include transferring your data from your old computer, plus a 2-year warranty. Call EagleZip.com today.
Stop by EagleZip.com today and let us make computers easy for you.
I grew up in a single-parent home. We were raised by my mom in a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens, and I slept in what was supposed to be a dining room just off the kitchen. We were poor and fell behind in our bills. More than once our electricity was shut off and there were eviction notices taped to our door. I remember walking into our kitchen and finding my mother standing by the stove, crying to herself because she didn't know what to do and felt helpless. I was about 9 or 10 when our apartment was robbed. I remember arriving home with my mother and brother and finding the door open, feeling confused because the first thing I saw was that our television, a set which forever sat on a stand in the living room, was missing. I know firsthand what it's like to be a victim, to be assaulted, robbed, to have things taken from you which you're never going to get back, and to be scarred by experiences which 30 and 40 years later still haunt me. We're lucky enough to live in Chautauqua County where by and large we feel safe, but unfortunately bad things do happen here. I want to be the district attorney who personally prosecutes the most serious crimes and who's there for victims every step of the way. These are the people I want to represent, to fight for their justice, to fight for our justice in the courtroom, to help people who have suffered at the hands of others. This is why I want to be your district attorney.
You're watching WNY News Now, where coverage comes first.
And welcome back. As states continue to reopen, the availability of child care remains a hot-button issue. We asked Congressman Tom Reed yesterday for an update on his push to bring more federal funding to child care locally. The Republican says that he's working with members of the Senate to give child care providers direct access to federal resources.
I think it's widely recognized that child care during this crisis is something that needs to be assisted. Being a father myself, my wife and I, and our top priority is the safety of our children. You have to make sure that the children have a safe and secure environment to go to. And given the nature of the crisis, given the nature of the anxiety and the threats that are associated with the crisis, we have to make sure that the child care resources are there so that our families have some assurity that their kids are going to be safe and sound.
A bill was introduced last month in the Senate called the Back to Work Child Care Grants Act of 2020. The bill calls for federal government to provide grants to support a provision of child care by reopening and maintaining the operation of programs. Meanwhile, the governor, who in large measure has defined states' up and down fight against the coronavirus, including the occasional combat with the White House, is poised to widen his national spotlight. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo took the reins of the National Governors Association yesterday during a meeting held virtually. Cuomo, who was tapped for the position back in 2018, says that governors who shouldered the brunt of responding to COVID-19 need to unite to prepare for the next virus and control a pandemic that's still taking the lives of thousands.
We know that we must resolve this virus together. We know that unless COVID is defeated everywhere, it won't be defeated anywhere. COVID will ricochet across this country, bouncing from one state to another, and the only course forward, in both our state's self-interest and in our collective interest, is to lock arms and to leave this virus no place to spread.
Now, the new chair says governors will push for a federally funded infrastructure plan while asking for unprecedented testing capacity and stockpiles of protective gear, supplies, and medicine. Well, while many businesses have taken a hit during this pandemic, others are booming. As our Mandy Gaither explained, some in real estate say coronavirus is pushing younger home buyers out of the city and into their first home.
This is what we're desperate for in the city.
For many young home buyers, COVID-19 is making the green space of the suburbs more attractive.
The value of the city to us was being around all the people, being able to go to all the restaurants and the culture, like the museums and the plays and everything. And so you remove all of that, it's difficult to justify paying the rent, being in a small confined space, and having no access to being outdoors by yourself.
First-time homebuyer applications jumped 20% in June compared to that same month the year before, according to CoreLogic, a company that analyzes business statistics.
We're based in Darien, Connecticut. So in the first 6 months, which is really incredible when you think about how much business was not being able to be done during the pandemic, Fairfield County as a whole did about $2.36 billion in sales, and that's 12% over the same period last year. And even better than that, if we're just looking from the end of June to the end of June, pending sales are up 49%. It's really skyrocketed.
I think the majority of what we've seen are people that have been considering moving to the suburbs from the city. And it's really kind of been the nudge that's got them to the burbs, just with everything going on in the pandemic.
For today's Consumer Watch, I'm Mandy Gaither.
All right, Mandy, thank you. Well, telemedicine has been booming since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the most vulnerable population might be the most disadvantaged when it comes to this new doctor-patient format. A recent study published in the journal JAMA studied more than 4,000 older adults using data from 2018. Now, based on their findings, researchers estimate that about 13 million older Americans were not ready for video visits. That's mostly because of their inexperience with technology. Now, telephone visits seems to be able to accommodate those people better, but millions would still have some sort of issue, according to the study, because of hearing problems, problems speaking, or even dementia. Phone calls also have their limitations, especially if a doctor needs a visual assessment. Certainly, the world is changing, and a lot of people spending a lot more time at home and not going to the doctor's office. I did have a checkup a couple weeks ago, and it was actually a pretty comfortable environment. You know, everybody had their masks on, the waiting room was socially distantly set up, and I seemed to have a pretty good time. But I imagine for some older people, especially those really vulnerable, just the fact that you're trying to get to the doctor. And I think here in Chautauqua County, we're blessed in that a lot of time, aside from certain groups here in Jamestown, everyone has their own private vehicle, right? And you can get in a car and drive somewhere, where maybe if you don't have that option, you got to take public transportation. And at times that can be pretty dangerous, especially with an invisible virus floating around. Got to say hello to Alberta. Thanks so much for joining us today. Good to see you here. Good to see Cindy, Carol, Lori, Jay as well. Hopefully everybody's having a good day. We appreciate you joining us. Before we go to Chief Forecaster Dakota Hunter with a first look at our weather, I want to bring something up. If we can take the DoubleTree camera live, that is actually pointed out over the Jamestown BPU today, because the BPU is doing something called a steam blow at the power plant. You can see a little bit of the steam out there right now. It's a completely safe process, which is just meant to clean the steam lines. They say that the process hasn't occurred since the 1960s or 70s at that plant, and was not expected to be so noisy. But they say that they've received a few people on social media saying they've heard this loud noise coming from the downtown area. That's what it is. It's the steam stacks of those power plants. So certainly, if you're out and about today, pardon the noise. Dakota, it's pretty cool though. They haven't done that since the 60s and 70s. So
long
like
before our time, Jay.
Yeah, certainly. It's just crazy to think about how long the power plant has been there. I mean, it's big provider here.
Do you remember? I think prior to 2000, I don't know the exact date, but it's probably around 2010. It was coal fired. The whole plant was coal, and then they transferred it over to natural gas. So, as far as I know, it's still a natural gas plant. And speaking of something else, talking about the doctors, I mentioned this before we got on the air. Look at how big my jacket is on me.
Good for you, Dakota.
Yeah,
Good,
I mean, I actually have like 3 jackets that I store here, and this is one of the other ones that I used to wear a lot, and it used to be kind of tight around my stomach area. Now look at this thing.
Yeah, good job. Good. And that's hard to do during the pandemic. One of the conversations I had with my doctor was a lot of people gained weight because they were at home, right? I mean, the snacks are right there.
Yeah, just raid the fridge. But, according to my doctor, I lost about 10 pounds when I went. So
Good
10
deal.
down, 100 more to go. All right, let's get into weather. Talking about the low temperatures this morning. Yeah, it was a chilly morning. Exactly as we told you, the valleys were going to wind up in the upper 40s. 48 is where you started the day in Randolph, 45 in Clymer, 55 in Fredonia. And here in the city officially, we hit 50 degrees. For some reason, my weather camera is being goofy. Anyway, here we go with this. This is probably a more depressing fact. You all know the soap opera Days of Our Lives. My mother's favorite soap opera, but now we should make it Dwindling Days of Our Lives. The sunset today comes up at 8:29. At the end of the month, it's 7:51. Okay, still not bad, but look at by the end of September, it goes down to 6:59. And by the time the solstice comes around, at the end of the year, the sunset's going to be around 4:30. It's the truth. All right, here we go. Get out and enjoy today if you can. It's going to be great. Showers near the state line Friday. If you're further to the north, you'll likely stay dry tomorrow. It's going to be right near the state line. There's going to be a few showers sparking up in the afternoon. We crank the heat back up, and yes, the humidity as well. As Justin just told you, we have the Sky Vision camera on top of the DoubleTree Hotel pointed out to show you the Jamestown BPU power plant. There is 67 at noon hour, northeast wind of 9, but the dew point way down into the 50s today. So hey, if you've got any yard work to do, today is going to be a great day to do it here. So get out and enjoy it. Yes, green light for today. A yellow light for tomorrow for the road for the yard work, mainly just because of the shower chance near the state line. Saturday and Sunday, you go, girl. Fantastic. Now on Monday, we're giving you the yellow light mainly just because of the humidity is going to be up. So let's talk about that very quickly. On the weekend weather here, Saturday is going to be a great day. Lots of sunshine, tiny bit humid, highs in the upper 70s. And then as we head into Sunday, the sun will continue, but the humidity will also increase with that. So just keep that in mind. Download the WNY News Now app. These two handsome guys, we make our forecast right here in-house. We're the only local weather team in the entire western southern tier. So download that app. We'll keep you updated as weather developments occur. Zone forecast, inland areas today, mid-70s will do it here, but it's still going to remain cool with low humidity. Lake Erie shoreline, want to get out on the beach today, great for upper 70s. Lake Erie water temperature at 77 degrees. Now, the future is up on the screen. 74 tomorrow. Again, chance for that shower or storm near the Pennsylvania line. 79 Saturday. And again, the weekend, we talked about that. Monday, it's going to be increasingly more humid, so keep that in mind, but we should be mainly dry. Tuesday, a chance for scattered afternoon showers and storms. Still warm in the lower 80s. And by the time we head into Wednesday, we'll be in the lower 80s still, but I think we should be mainly dry at this point. Justin?
All right, Dakota, thank you very much. Holding on to summer for now. Search giant Google is using its Google Doodle to promote some mask wearing and social distancing. Those measures are part of the CDC's guidelines on how to prevent the spread of coronavirus. Google's homepage animation shows the letters of its name wearing brightly colored masks. The letters then shuffle playfully away from each other to create some distance. The letter E sends a heart emoji into the air, depicting adherence to CDC guidelines as an act of compassion. That's because wearing a mask is the primary way to protect others from carrying coronavirus, perhaps without knowing it. Now, clicking on the animation takes the viewer to the Google's COVID-19 prevention page, where additional information is available. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people don't realize. Regardless of whether you think COVID-19's a hoax or it's whatever it is, wearing a mask is really the easiest way, not to protect yourself necessarily, but to protect others from the spread. It helps, not all of your breath, but most of your breath is contained inside of your mask. And that's the big reason why health experts say it's important to wear a mask. We do it here in the newsroom. When we're 6 feet apart from each other, obviously we take them off. We're not going to wear it all day. But if we're near each other, we do that. And that's one of the best ways to protect yourself and others from COVID-19, and certainly the best way to kind of get life back to some sort of normal. Well, we thank you all so much for joining us here for WNY News Now. Now let's check in with the comments. Say hello to Alberta, Kyle as well. Good to see you. We thank you all so much for sticking with us as your source for local news. That's going to do it for the show today. Of course, we are back tomorrow with our TGIF edition, and we got a programming note for you. Jason Schmidt, he's the Republican candidate for district attorney. He's going to join us live to talk about his campaign and the future of that office, what he would change and what he would do. We'll see you there tomorrow. We'll leave you now, though, with a live look over Chautauqua Lake. Hopefully everybody has a great day.